And for the panelists that's just joined us, when you come up, you can sit down anyway. I'd like you to just do a brief introduction so people know what questions to ask you. So I think you can probably move this way. I'm not going to bite you.
We thought you would bite us. That's why we sat on this side.
There's room for one more.
Okay, so I guess we can start with you, Ben. You want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself so people know what questions to ask you and how you helped Michael or Exxon?
So my name is Ben Wilson. I'm Director of Product, so I build data platforms and integrate AI inside of it. My main job here today is to make sure that Michael is embarrassed because his boss is sitting in the back. So I'm going to work really hard at that today.
Well, he did a great job.
James Newman from Augury. I am Principal Solutions Evangelist at Augury, which is a fancy title for say I talk a lot. I've been in manufacturing in some form or fashion, including being the Bubba on the operating line for more than 30 years. Last 10 on the technology side, trying to help understand how we can take what users need and let technology support that.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to the audience and see if there's any questions that people have to start, or we'll let them get warmed up, because sometimes I know in the morning people are a little bit on the. There is one. We got one right here. Good. Going to start out great this morning. Also, use the mics whenever you speak, because we're video recording it, and then otherwise you can't hear what the question or the answer.
Thank you very much. I'm Peter van Skalkwijk from Exxon Pro. Kind of two questions, one for Michael and then one for Ben. So Michael, great in terms of creating that open platform and the work that you're doing there. Is that going to be kind of open sourced, from a question perspective? And then secondly to Ben, if it is, when can we have it?
That's a good question. So as part of this journey, as I mentioned before, we believe that this need is beyond just our industry. And so the concepts that we have been working closely with AWS is intended to be shared with everyone. Consistent in our messaging in terms of, moving to a more visual way of working. We cannot do that by ourselves. We need a true ecosystem of suppliers, other asset owners in terms of changing the way we work. And so absolutely the stuff that we have, been working and co-developing, we intend that, quite frankly, it'll be available to more people. I think the when question was to you, Ben.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm thinking of something embarrassing for you. So I think the way to think about this is, Amazon's view of the world is choice for customers is always good. That's what we want. And so when we go build things like this, one of the things we do want to do is go open source it so that we have the opportunity to provide customers choice across a myriad of platforms. We haven't made it far enough in this journey yet where we're actually in production at scale where we can make that decision yet. Our intent would be to go do that so it's open for a whole bunch of other customers so they can leverage it and use it. But at the end of the day, what we're constantly looking at is how the technology is changing. Right now, we're doing 3D scanning, right? And we're looking at all the images. I don't know if anyone knows what Gaussian splatting is, but if you've used Pokemon Go, you've used Gaussian splatting to do 3D imaging. And so there's new changes that are happening every day. And so what we have to do is work with our customers, work backwards from their needs to understand at what point in time it makes sense to go open source it. I'd like to see it done this year. I just don't know whether that's a realistic goal or not. Being kind of director of product and trying to get the AI piece too, I think there's quite a bit of AI we have to put into this to be able to really make it useful and able to be able to go do things like we just saw recently. We just saw with the sand. Right? This is a great example of where AI comes together with a process and technology to make a difference. And the same thing can happen here. One other thing I would highlight too is that, and I use Pokemon Go as an example, is I really believe that if you go look at media and entertainment, specifically gaming, that is the future we're going to see. When you go look at things like Gaussian splatting, what you're going to see is you're going to see more of these images that are going to create these 3D environments for us. And 5 years from now, we're going to be using them on a very, very regular basis.
Okay, I think there was a question over here. It's not on.
Is it working now? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalia Klafke from Radix. So, Michael, thank you for sharing your experiences. I would like to hear more about geospatial data storage. I know that there is a lot of challenges on that area, so could you share a little bit with us?
No, thanks for the question. I guess instead of me telling, how about I show you? Everybody take out their phone. Go ahead, take a picture. Take a picture of us, up here. Make sure you got the word ARC, so underneath Janice is there. Okay? Now, after you've taken that picture, go back to your photos. And in your photos, this is the combination of AI in terms of coming together. Type in Florida, type in the best speaker in the world. My picture may come up. Right? But the point here is that, the metadata that you just captured associated with simply taking a picture is part of what I would say is that geospatial computing that you can interact with. How many people in the audience have 3D engineering models, 3D scans, that you do not have that capability, right? Because when we talk about contextualizing your 3D assets or your plant, it's really giving you the same experience you have with your phone, whether it's, iOS, et cetera. The technology of geospatial metadata all coming together to give you the experience to find the asset that you need is really the game changer. You're not going to go back to your photo albums that are sitting on a shelf, because those are synonymous with our hard drives, right? I mean, that's physically where that industry is. You are going to, accelerate that to where the imagery, you will know where, when, and those assets are available.
Okay, I think we have another question here.
Hi, good morning. Tarek Siqueira with Radix. Haroldo, I have a question. You mentioned one of the challenges was to leverage and integrate the knowledge from the data integration part, the technology for the data and the use cases. And right now, as the next steps, you guys are moving more and more towards the use cases, which get more complex. So what is your plan and next steps to be able to integrate all these knowledges to solve the use cases?
First of all, one strategy that Petrobras has is a huge work on IT and OT convergence to put all these people in the same room with the same, let's say, weight on votes to make things happen. So we build a center of excellence of IoT on our company. We deal with things like OT, IT, data, ET. And one point that we are doing to leverage all these use cases is let the guys from OT, let the guys from the business tell which priorities they have, and also open a space for them to learn what we are doing, to learn how to deal with a data platform, to help us to prioritize and feel which initiatives could be quick wins and which initiatives would took a long time but could also bring you high value. So they're helping us to prioritize all these initiatives so we can hit the target of bring value in a short time. But it's a hard job to get, for instance, 30, 40 projects from several areas. And the fun part is that we have, for instance, refining and upstream. Which one's the priority? For refining, they think that something is important. For upstream, it's also important. 2 different executives dealing with us, and we have to weight all this, bring the right weight for each of these points. So it's a hard task, but I believe that if we join people and make them talk and leverage and use a well-structured framework to measure that, we can really organize these initiatives in a feasible pipeline.
Okay, do we
Hi.
have another question from the audience?
Hi, this is Pierre Arsenault from Optimistic. We're a software provider. To Scott and Geraldo, I thanks for sharing with us like your journeys and some of the improvements and initiatives you've done. I'm curious to see. I saw you had lessons learned, but what are do you still have like open use cases and issues right now that you're feeling you still need to address that you haven't found a technology or software that you're like, this is still something we would like to address, and we still, there's the big gap. What are the next types of projects you'd like to address that are use cases?
I think there's not, I see it two ways. Some is, hey, taking what we've done in one area, and then how do we spread that out? Like going from the dryers to the wet plant process, right? That's kind of straight up maintenance. We're using AI in maintenance, but once you peel the onion, you found out that onion is a whole lot bigger than I thought that onion was. And so how do we now harvest that, and how can we use that to further drive the performance of the business? For a small company, you're looking to partner with anyone that can help you everywhere from what's the best bucket for the bucket elevator to what's the best AI solution for anything. We've implemented changes in areas that we didn't ever think you were going to change, right? So I think when we look at kind of our whole process, both our back office process, there's still some opportunities there, but also kind of our whole production. I'm looking at also kind of one of the conversations that's storing is how do we better optimize our mine planning, where we're getting core data, we're getting real sample data, we're getting production data. And this is how it starts a lot of times. It's like, we don't see a clear path how to get there. But guess what? We don't need to. We need to feel in our gut, hey, there's some real value there. And then what's that trade-off? And then go take those steps and get down the road and see a clearer picture. And then you're making a go, no-go criteria as you're going. So I think on the technical aspects, how do we mine is one thing. How do we better utilize the people in our processes? Safety, clearly. I mean, we do a whole lot. But I think now it's like, okay, now we have some data. How do we leverage that data that's out there is another big opportunity for us. And it's really kind of, not to be cliché, but it is kind of endless, because the more you get into it, the more you find what's that next opportunity. I will say here, define a use case. Like when we started what we did with Augury, it was an experiment. We weren't sure if you were going to get a payback or not, but intuitively you think, look, we don't need to save so much to pay back and get a good payback, right? Do we think we'll fall into that? Yes, I think we will. Maintenance, putting in a lot of our maintenance work and the improvements we've done in maintenance, no direct hardline, ROI calculation, but intuitively, you don't have to save a whole lot on your maintenance costs then to justify the project. So quite a lot of different areas. And we're looking to partner with people that want to come in and say, look, we think we'll try this, share some of the risk with us. And if it works, we're going to use it. And if it doesn't work, okay, we all tried hard. Thanks. Next thing.
Yeah, one thing I'd mention around this is, by the way, that was a great use case. What's really awesome about seeing something like that is they're starting small and trying to move bigger. And it's very similar to what we did in Amazon.com with all of our fulfillment centers. We started small. We started one place. We started say, hey, how do we go do shelving better? And now it's created a situation where the vast majority of the work in our latest fulfillment centers are actually automated through robots using AI. And it was through a very small step by step by step. This didn't happen in a big bang. This happened over 10 years to be able to make those things happen. So when people go and see fulfillment centers and they go, oh, wow, look at all these robots, look at how you did this, they all think it was like some big bang. It was a series of very small steps. And that's why that story is really, really good.
Well, from the technical point, I think that we started a foundation on the data layer, but we still have improvements to make when people has to build their models, build their solutions, and use this data. I think we can also think of something like an AI platform or an analytics platform that can help users to get this data and turn it into value. Today we have wide set of technologies that we use for that. And it would be good if we have a more organized way to do that. It's something that we are working with some partners of ours, but I still see this as a gap, something that we need to work on. Looking for more on the management and process area, I think we have to work a lot in change management of this process. We are changing the way that people work. So we need to ensure that we engage people in working with us. And that demands a lot of change management, a lot of communication, and every kind of process or tool or let's say consulting way of working with that could help us a lot in this way, because usually technical guys are not experts in change management. We usually need the help from people that are more, let's say, communicative, that can talk better, that can have action. So this is, I think, is a gap that we always can work and we can always increase.
I would say one last thing about that. It's all about establishing trust, right? The idea of starting small, I actually hate that word. It's start smart, not small, right? Because the problems we're solving are small ones. They're big ones. Otherwise, we wouldn't do them, right? If they were small problems, we wouldn't do them, right? But the change management is an important part. One of the things Scott's team does exceptionally well is Scott says, if it messes up, you're okay. Right? Not the technology's okay, right? If that doesn't work, we'll kick it out. But you, my team, you're okay if it doesn't work. That level of trust is important, right? The top down is super important. The ability to really, so we all say fail fast. But who really does that, right? Because people are afraid. They don't trust that if they do that, they're okay. And so I think the culture part here is super important, right? The technology is awesome. As I've told people forever, technology is the greatest thing you can apply if people believe they're going to be okay when you do it. And that's the whole key thing here. We're not trying to eliminate people. We're trying to make people better. But people have to believe they're going to be better even if it doesn't work. And I think that's one of the key things here. Change management is all about establishing trust with people to say, we're going to get better. It may work, it may not, but we're not going to give up the attempt, and you're going to be okay. And I think that's one of the key elements that we see in these successful projects. If people believe they're going to win, regardless of what the technology does, they're much more likely to give the technology a shot.
I think
I think, well, okay, we have time for one more question. Okay, so we'll do that. And then I'll just say this. I think that the speakers and the panelists agreed that they would stay for a couple minutes, but you might have to take it out in the hall because there's another session coming in at 10:30. But what I'd like to just say, to answer some more of your questions, why don't we just take one more question?
I'm going to try to put this into one question. Mark Lee, Dow Inc. So this is for Michael. Regarding your geospatial metadata, are you using a hardware standardization to make sure that for automated metadata, like geospatial metadata capture, are you doing hardware standardization or process standardization for that? And then are you moving one step further? Are you like, because 3D scans are pretty much bulk capture, are you doing some sort of way to segment different components to store that metadata as well?
Okay, that's not a short answer.
Yeah, I tried my best.
I guess the first thing I would say is, and I give a lot of credit to the Open Asset Digital Twin Working Group, is that really coming together to establish the guardrails for capture, where the metadata is documented as part of those guardrails, is what we're providing the hardware providers. I mean, we meet with the individual OEMs and quite frankly continue to tout that we will be agnostic to the capture devices, and the neutral file formats need to follow the guardrails. And similar to what I was showing with you with the picture, the expectation is that the geospatial storage platform will automatically consume that metadata so that you're not sitting there typing all kinds of, hashtag, yada, 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 that nobody's ever going to do. The process itself is going to inherently provide the metadata, if you follow the guardrails, that will be utilized in terms of the consumption tool later.
Thank you.
Okay, well, with that, what I'd just like to do is just ask all the panelists and the speakers to just give the audience one quick takeaway before they go. And so we just go right down the line, and I guess we'll start with you, Michael.
I was just trying to figure out how I was going to set Ben up. Yeah. No, I think this is an area where, as you've heard out through the week, and really, I thank everybody that has been a part of the journey of moving to that visual way of working. And my ask is for everybody to keep leaning in, because I think this is an area where together, everybody in the room has an opportunity to play in the space.
Ben?
Really quickly, I'd say that as you go capture all this data, generative AI is going to be a game changer because it's going to go create more metadata for you. That metadata is going to be what's going to be used across every one of these applications to be able to give you differentiated insights. And I think what you're going to find over time is we're going to find that metadata exceeds the amount of data that you actually capture. And that is going to be a point in time where we're going to see real differentiation in what we can do out in the environment.
Well, quick comment. Data without context is unusable for AI. Simple like that. And we have to invest on this. And it's something that we usually don't think a lot about it. So it's time to invest in contextualization automatically, manually, whatever. Automatically, obviously, is the best way because doing this manually is suicide. So it's time to invest on that because if we don't do that, the risks of establishing AI solutions that doesn't understand well what we are doing and proposing even dangerous solutions is very high. So contextualize your data.
Scott?
Yeah, I always have more than one thing, but it's all about the people, number one. That's where the rubber meets the road, right? Be fearless and be aggressive in your experimentation. Try things, that's how you learn, right? And then don't forget the small companies. They're out there, there's a lot of them, and they're all hungry to get better.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on that and say, keep your eye on the goal, right? It's not about technology for technology's sake, even though I work for a technology company. It's about the goal that you have as a business or you have as an organization. And it's all about trust. It's all about building the trust in the technology that you're leveraging, the trust in the people to execute the technology, the trust, most importantly, that you're going to get the goal you kept your eye on. And that's how you win.
So I'd just like to thank everybody. Thought we had a great session, a great group of speakers. I'd like to thank the speakers and the panelists and all their companies, ExxonMobil, Petrobras, Superior Silica Sands, and Augury. So thank you very much. Let's have hands for these. Great job.